Good morning to you, and thank you for finding time to be with us today. The show is Good Morning Africa. My name is Miriam Agutu, and it is a pleasure to have you on board. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in today. So as usual, I'll take us through quickly the headlines this morning, and then we shall look at the headlines of some of regional papers from across Africa. Then we will get into our conversation by looking at some of the stories making headlines this morning, being Wednesday, the 30th of March, 2022. We start with the Star newspaper from Kenya. How Thika man boiled to death, only tooth left. Otieno's glove snagged and he was dragged into furnace of molten steel moments before his 50 shillings Ugali lunch arrived. That is an accident that happened at a steel company last week. The story is on page 2. Don't force your project on us, Deputy President tells his boss Kenyatta. That is on page 6. And the main pictorial is the faces of defections as ODM issues direct tickets. And we see there Homa Bay Governor Gladys Wanga, she's been given that, and Kakamega Fernandez Baraza, among others. An anxious wait for Uhuru Ruto and Raila ahead of Supreme BBI judgment. Anxiety has crippled political bigwigs ahead of Thursday's high-stakes Supreme Court judgment on the Building Bridges initiative. The story is on page 4 and 5 on the Star newspaper. Girl overcomes pain in exam room to excel in KCPE, and she scored 410 marks. The Standard newspaper, the main headline, Dreams of KCPE stars from engineers to doctors. The top performers of the just released 2021 Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examination are already nursing their future career aspirations as they work towards achieving their goals, beginning with choice of dream schools. That is on the special coverage on the Standard newspaper on page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 12. You'll find that story there. And 900 aspirants to fight it out as independents. That is on page 23. And KQ cuts losses by 56%. I guess that is some good news. That is on page 38. But does that mean more layoffs, or what is really happening? Perhaps we shall look at that story. Dear Congo formally joins EAC, and that is a conversation we shall be having at 11 a.m. Yesterday, it did join the East African community, and perhaps what does this mean to the East African community? That is a conversation we shall have at 11 a.m. Inside Qatar World Cup control room, the story is on page 56. I know there's so much going on around the world that people are forgetting. You know that there is a World Cup coming up, and this year it's going to be in Qatar. And, the country has been readying itself for the past couple of years, and it seems all geared up for the World Cup. And the Daily Nation, the main headline, private schools, top county KCPE charts. We see that continue, and they have a list there of the top schools nationally. And according to analysis, the perennial competition between candidates in public and private schools played out in 2021 Kenya Certificate of Primary Education exam countrywide. According to a national analysis of the mean scores of top schools in various regions, still public institutions competed favorably on what C.S. Magoha attributed to the 1-to-1 public pupil to textbook ratio. The story is on page 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 13 on the Daily Nation. Raila denies plotting Uhuru impeachment. That is on page 14. And KQ halves losses on post-COVID recovery. The national carrier records a 56% drop in net loss for 2021, 15.8 billion Kenya shillings, a significant improvement from the 36.2 billion Kenya shillings it lost in 2020. That is on the back page on the Daily Nation. And then let's just look at a few of the regional newspapers from across Africa. And we start with the New Vision from Uganda, final burial plan for Olunya, the departed Speaker of Uganda's Parliament. And Daily Monitor, still from Uganda, government slashes budget on Olunya's burial. There you go. And then The Guardian from Nigeria, shock as terrorists launch another train attack in 24 hours. Is this another attack? Because yesterday we were reporting on another one. the attack that happened, and the train that carried for nearly 1,000 people was attacked, and a number of people were abducted. And from the headlines this morning from Nigeria, The Guardian, it appears there's another attack that was launched just 24 hours after the other attack. Things are getting out of hand in Nigeria, and they're saying shock. I'm not really shocked. This is something that has been happening, and the government has been reluctant on addressing the issues of insecurity in Nigeria. The Punch, still from Nigeria, Buhari National Assembly governors demand tough actions, survivors recount ordeal. All right, I guess from that attack from, the train attack that I just told you about. The Daily News from Zimbabwe, government prepared to talk to opposition as Zimbabwe bids to end its history of disputed polls. You'll find that. And 100 stranded in Oman. That is according to the government. That is also a newspaper from Zimbabwe. The Citizen from Tanzania. EAC now one of Africa's largest trading areas, I think after the joining of the Democratic Republic of Congo to the East African Community Bloc. And I don't know what else we have there. But the Daily News also from Tanzania, EAC ushers in DRC, the same headline. So that is what we have on some of the leading newspapers in the continent, as well as the leading newspapers here in Kenya right now. I'm joined by Gladwell Kirago, a journalist, and our analyst from Nairobi. Kirago, a very good morning to you.
Very good morning to you, Miriam. Good morning to you, Daniel. Good morning to our viewers.
All right, good morning and nice to have you on the show. And we're also joined by Daniel Wesonga, our in-house analyst, as well as our correspondent here at Punchline Africa Television. Daniel Wesonga, very good morning to you.
Yes, sir. Very good morning to you, Miriam. Good morning to my sister, Gladwell Kirago. Good morning to our viewers here in Nairobi, Kenya, East Africa, and the rest of the globe who are watching us this particular morning. It is my pleasure to be on the conversation, Miriam.
Okay, so thank you so much. Yesterday, we didn't get a lot of time to talk about a bit of what has been happening in the political arena. So today I'd just like us to start off with that, and then we shall look at other stories. And we start with the Daily Nation. The headline, there's a story, I see it is on page 14. So let me just head on there and we see what is happening. Azimio la Umoja presidential flag bearer Raila Odinga's ODM faces a litmus test in Siaya. But that is not the story I was looking for. It's just beside that. Azimio la Umoja presidential flag bearer Raila Odinga yesterday waded into the impeachment claims against President Uhuru Kenyatta, saying he was not aware of claims by Deputy President William Ruto that he plotted to remove the head of state from office. The impeachment claims emerged following a meeting between President Kenyatta and more than 3,000 Agikuyu elders and leaders from the Mount Kenya region at State House, Nairobi last Saturday. The president reportedly expressed concern that the DP had plotted to impeach him, prompting him to seek a handshake with his erstwhile opponent, Mr. Odinga. But speaking in Malindi, Kilifi County on Monday, Dr. Ruto came out guns blazing and suggesting that it was Mr. Odinga, whom he said swore himself in as the people's president against the constitution, who had a plot and executed to overthrow the Jubilee administration by swearing himself in. Dr. Ruto said Mr. Odinga had threatened the constitutional order. So we've seen how this story has been playing out, and I was seeing a hashtag yesterday trending here in the country, and we see what was said in that meeting, what is reported to have said, and the response by Deputy President William Ruto. But even in his response, he did not deny ever talking to Raila Odinga, but of course he said whatever president was saying was not true, but he did not deny ever being in conversation with opposition leader Raila Odinga. Gladwell Kirago, what do you make out of all this?
Miriam, as I said earlier, politics is a dirty game for sure. And before the handshake, Ruto and Uhuru were good friends and they are working together. And after the handshake, that is when things went south and east. And as I said, there's this Madhya MP, the Peter Kimari, who gave the brief information of what Ruto was trying to do. And he also mentioned that Ruto was trying to also to get the handshake he wanted to impeach our president. and he formed the government. He wanted to strike a power deal with the ODM leader, that is Raila, so that they can impeach out Uhuru. And there was a time, I think is it 2017, when Raila declared himself a president. And that is what Ruto is using against Raila since then. That's why he's saying that he is the one who tried to impeach the government currently. Another thing, Miriam, as I said, Ruto also encouraged opposition protest in 2017, same time inciting Uhuru to clamp down on them. And he also wanted to make the country and the government, the Uhuru's government, ungovernable. But now my question would, there was a time also, it is said, I'm not sure, Uhuru he was tricked to taking charge of government, where Ruto attempted to strike the deal with the ODM party. So I'm not sure of the allegation, but one thing that is making us Kenyans curious, after Uhuru said what he said to the elders of the Kikuyu, the Agikuyu, the Mount Kenya, the only response the deputy president gave, yes, he was bitter, but he said, nimekusamehea, I have forgiven you. So I don't think we are waiting to see if there's further reaction he will take to it or the action. But him saying nimekusamehea, just tell me the deputy president will do nothing. And the both of them, when they were friends, they know what they were doing together. So I think this is just a leakage of what was happening before that is being brought into light to us Kenyans. So I think they should come straight and stop beating around the bush, stop making us Kenyans look like fools. There's more than meets the eye in that statement, because there's no way our president can just wake up in the morning, call the elders and in the presence of 300 leaders and confess that my deputy president wanted to impeach me out. It's either it's true or it's a lie.
All right, thank you so much. And I know you're saying that the deputy president, the much you said is nimekusamehea, but he said a lot more. So maybe let me just remind us how the response of the deputy president, Daniel, before you come in. I'm not a fool, a drunkard, or a madman to help put together a government and then go behind it and plan to remove it. As deputy president, I know what I must do, and I have never, and it has never happened that I will do anything to bring down our government. To those spreading the propaganda, shame on you, shame. You deserve nothing but shame, he said at a rally in Malindi. And of course, when he was speaking, he really underscored the fact that it is Raila who, came and swore himself against the law as the people's president. But he did not say, if at all, he did not refute claims that, he had been engaging in talks with Raila Odinga, Daniel. And the response of Raila Odinga yesterday, I think, when he was being pressed so much, he said no comment. And, in media, when you hear no comment, really, you're left room to wonder.
Miriam, William Ruto has never been truthful in his engagements. And you remember, even at Bomas, the president talks before him, in a meeting where he was around, and he said, before I went to have a handshake with my brother Raila Odinga, I informed my deputy that I was going to meet Raila Odinga. William Ruto only grinned and laughed and went to greet the president. He never agreed to it or maybe refuted the claims. But later on in rallies, he has always driven a narrative that the president did that behind his back. So this is a man who can go to a certain place and maybe derail the agenda of the government of the day, but in a separate meeting where maybe the dynamics actually benefit him, he'll actually drum up support and use the legacy projects to actually maybe earn some few political bonga points for it. So this is a man who is not truthful, Miriam. This is a man who is so much accustomed to lying that he has never been straight in his dealings. And therefore, I don't believe in whatever William Ruto says. The president actually had his take and he put it into the court of the public opinion. William Ruto came out and said, yes, there was a plot to impeach the president, but it is Raila who brought it on the table. But, when you look at the end of the day, who was going to benefit from the impeachment of the president? It is William Ruto. Why would Raila Odinga impeach the president knowing too well that it is William Ruto who is going to ascend to the seat of power when he has all along been attacking Ruto more than he even had problems with the president Uhuru Kenyatta? So it really beats logic. And yesterday, when Raila Odinga refused to maybe comment on it, I believe that Raila Odinga could be maybe someone who's just trying. He has been a statesman all through his political dealings. He is someone who wouldn't want maybe to get into the fight between the deputy and the president, because you understand whichever implication that will have brought to his campaign, and William Ruto probably would have run with it and said that it is a conspiracy between Raila Odinga and the president to actually maybe malign his name. And that is why Raila Odinga did not want to comment on it. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter remains that the president already gave us whatever background of whatever was happening, and therefore we take that as the gospel truth. And William Ruto, in essence, hasn't come out to deny it outrightly. However, he's trying to pass the buck to the other person. So to me, Miriam, I think whatever the president said is the truth, and it is out there. What William Ruto was trying to perhaps do the other day was to divert the attention of the Kenyan people. But it is a fact. There was a motion to impeach the president, which was being hashed to impeach the president. And the beneficiary of such a scheme was William Samoei Ruto. There is no way it was going to benefit Raila Odinga or the opposition. So you really wonder when he says that the plan came from Raila Odinga. You can't impeach the president only to replace him with a very corrupt and the worst of the politicians that maybe even the opposition supporters could ever think of. So Raila Odinga, in his right senses, knows that William Ruto is no better to any leader of this country. Even just by assumption that he can replace President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta as the president after the impeachment, I believe that is something that wouldn't even have crossed the mind of the former opposition leader. So to me, I think, Miriam, this is just the politics of scapegoating. Remember, William Ruto has always chosen on someone to scapegoat on, be it President Uhuru Kenyatta, be it Raila Odinga, be it the handshake, be it even the defunct NASA coalition. He's always having someone convenient to blame for his own problems. Okay. But the fact of the matter is that the president does not, perhaps in his own stature, is not a man who might maybe not come out to tell a lie, and is someone who actually receives intelligence briefs every morning in this since he took power in 2013. Mm-hmm. So he's not a madman. He's not someone, he understands. And when you look at the two leaders, President Uhuru Kenyatta has been quite committed in ensuring that we have national cohesion and unity of purpose for the people of Kenya. Therefore, he cannot come out with such an outrageous claim, and be it maybe it is all about fabrications and things which are not quite true. So it must be something heavy. It must be something which actually was in the pipeline. And the good thing is that, Miriam, William Ruto has not outrightly denied that indeed there was no maybe plan to impeach the president. Yeah. He said there was, but whatever assertion he's drawing, he's saying that no, it wasn't me, it was Raila Odinga. Why? Because Raila Odinga in 1982 tried to overthrow the government, or he swore himself in 2017. Cheap theatrics, which do not hold any waters. The president receives intelligence briefs. If it was Raila Odinga, then the president will have come out and said it is Raila Odinga. Then that also begs the question, Miriam, if it was Raila Odinga who approached the president, the deputy president with a scheme to impeach the president, then the deputy president back then was very, very close to the president. He had a direct phone contact, which I believe he still has, and he had access to State House at any time of the day or at any time of the night. Why didn't he drive to State House? Or why didn't he take his phone and call the president even the next day or even the next week or in the next month and tell him that Raila Odinga is planning this and that against you? What should be the way forward? I believe if he had done so, then the president wouldn't be coming out today to claim that the deputy president was hatching a scheme to impeach him. So let the deputy president tell us why didn't he, if it is Raila who approached him with this scheme, why didn't he share?
He's not even saying whether he and Raila had any conversation, but where he's roping in Raila in his response to what was said in that meeting is that Raila went and swore himself in, and through that is how he wanted to impeach the president. But he has not come out and said, indeed, we had conversation, or Raila approached him, or he approached Raila. He has not had that. He has not said that. Ruto himself has not said that. But I would like to perhaps bring on Gladwell. Of course, yesterday, as I said, there's something that was trending on Twitter in regards to this story. And they're saying for a long time, and I remember myself, I was shocked, because the deputy president had said Western Hotel does not belong to him. He had refuted the claims, he had denied, until he went to be interviewed in the UK. I can't remember what program, but it's very famous. Maybe Daniel, you can remind us. And that is when he was pressed, and he said, indeed, I own, Western Hotel. And personally, I was shocked. Like, how could you, for a long time, with a brave face, lie about ownership of this hotel, which was a matter of public, the public knew it, public information. And so people are using that and saying, even in this regard, even if he's refuting, like whatever he's denying, that means it's true. And people are trying to draw parallels with the story in Western Hotel. But I mean, is it possible that you can perhaps use some of the things in the past because these stories are different, Gladwell? Can we judge the deputy president on his previous track record, like and that one of Western Hotel?
Yes, as Wesonga said, we are having an issue with the deputy. Whatever he's saying and whatever he's doing, they're two different things. I personally know from back that Western Hotel belongs to deputy president. Then all of a sudden he said that he doesn't own the Western Hotel. Then when he was interviewed, now it is now his. So you see, it's a little bit complicated. And another thing, Ruto owns so much of the properties, even outside the country. I remember we were once having a conversation with a particular guy, and he's in the States, who happens to be the deputy president's friend. He's a friend to him. And he told me, this guy, what he does, like he gets properties outside the country, more so in the East Africa. That's why you find like this guy, his source of income is also from outside the country, got so many farms outside. And there was a time our president took a tour, I won't disclose to which country. And when he went, he was given a tour, and he said he wanted to invest in that country. And shocking him, the president of the country told him, my friend, this place belongs to your deputy president. The president was shocked. And he was told a whole acre of around 340 acres belongs to the deputy president, and he has invested heavily. And our president was shocked. And if the issue can be brought to limelight, I'm sure he will also deny. Our deputy president will also deny, the same way he's denying his own hotel. And Miriam, if you've ever happened to enter into, for example, into the Weston, the people who go there and their delegates, most of them are people with a class. And you can see the way they do their thing. And I remember I was once threatened, but tutakusema kwa deputy president, you won't have the peace. So the guy also, the waiter who told me, so I was also, so it is actually his. I'm talking of an incident that happened 3 days ago. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why he's refusing. The hotel belongs to him. Yes, it belongs to him.
He used to refuse. For a very long time, Daniel Wesonga. I know you remember. And of course, this interview was happening in the Hard Talk on BBC. So he was pressed, and then he came out and said, you know what, indeed, I am the owner of this hotel. And I was shocked. Because initially I thought, why are people just going after the deputy president? And he had refused over and over and over and over that he was not the owner of this hotel. So is it fair to judge him and what he's saying today based on, say, such an incident? Are Kenyans being fair in this regard?
Exactly, Miriam. We are fair. A man is judged by his or her character, Miriam. And I believe William Ruto has set a precedence where he does not talk the truth. He is always lying from both corners of his mouth. And he has always been a character who actually distances himself on anything that is brought against him. And thank you for bringing out that particular important information, that he did not even mention that there was a collaboration between himself and Raila, but rather he based based on the two maybe incidences of 1982 and the swearing-in ceremony. And I believe perhaps maybe, Miriam, that is the reason why Raila did not want even to be associated with this particular story. Because one, Raila does not receive intelligence briefs, but I believe the president does, and to some extent the deputy president does. And this scenario being that it was an accusation and a counter-accusation between the president and the deputy president, Raila Odinga was not party to it, and that is why he chose to remain outside of these particular maybe accusations. So I believe, Miriam, William Ruto has everything to hide in this particular scenario. You have just talked about the Western Hotel where he denied even his own child. If you remember the story of Mama Abby, he was denying and he was quiet about it until now the media came out, and then he came out to say, okay, Abby is my child, but trying again to rope in some other men, saying that, but the other men should also take care of their other kids and not leave every responsibility to me. That tells you the character of this man. He can deny something, but whenever he's pressed about it, he will say, okay, it is mine, but try and pass the buck to the other person. That is the same way he did with that baby Abby. Today, he's talking about, okay, there was an impeachment motion against the president, but Raila Odinga also saw himself in, and he tried to overthrow the government in 1982. When you ask him about corruption, okay, he'll tell you that he does not believe this and that about corruption, but the other side of the country or of the government is also stealing. So this is a thief. This is someone who is not straightforward. This is a liar par excellence, Miriam, and this is someone who does not accept liability and who cannot even say sorry for the mistakes and the blunders he does for him, whether for himself or the country. You remember even when he talked some loose words about the Democratic Republic of Congo regarding their milk production, he apologized. And once he was done apologizing, he said, but you have to understand that this was in just some light note. I don't believe, Miriam, someone is always genuine when they apologize or maybe accept liability and go ahead to use the term but. It means in some way they're actually trying to absolve them, and they're not genuinely actually taking responsibility for whatever they have done. So that is the we are talking about.
Yes, when you apologize, you don't say bad. When you say bad, you negate the apology. The apology is rendered useless. So you apologize and you move on and use something else, not bad. Okay. All right. Let's just leave that matter there for right now, because I know this is a story that is still developing. So we'll see what again will happen in the course of this day, and we shall be back here tomorrow to see how this story is developing. Now, of course, the KCPE results were released on Monday, and there has, the papers are still covering this, still happens to be the main headlines in all the newspapers today. But yesterday, as I was watching the news, there's a particular story that caught my attention in regards to the KCPE, and I see that the Standard newspaper has it on page 12. And a candidate who got 402 wants family to visit her in remand, standing at 5 feet 8 inches tall. With a chubby face, hiding her dark experience, Amelia Jacobeth is proud of her 402 marks in the 2021 KCPE exam. For her present, she hopes her family will visit her at Kakamega Prison. The 31-year-old sat the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education in 2007 and scored 305 marks, which was not bad. And Ms. Jacobet says that the decision to resit the exam was a step in the journey to reconnect with her family. I have been in Kakamega prison remand since January last year. No close family member has visited me since then. It hurts my mental health, and I found solace in education. And of course, now she wants to continue. Ms. Jacobet said as her case continues, she will go in with her secondary education after having dropped out of Iregi Girls Secondary in Form 3. There are avenues of online learning in prison that says will help her attain the highest level of education. And as I was listening to the story and I'm reading right now, there is some hope that comes with that. And I know, if we can remember the reforms that came in the prisons during the tenure of former President Mwai Kibaki, there seems to be paying off, and 402 marks out of 500. She did very well and in prison, Gladwell. So I don't know, what is it in line with reforms that we see in the prisons? And how can perhaps the government tap into, perhaps using education in the prisons as a tool to ensure for the people who are likely to leave prison, even for those who are serving life sentence, education will be a tool for those who have not gone through the education system, will be a tool to better themselves. So when they leave prison, they will have something to fall back into. How could you use education as a tool for reforms in our prisons, judging by this very good example that we just saw here, this lady performing so well?
Thank you, Miriam. And I have been I wish the government can look more deeper into the women or the people in prison, because most of prison, it's like a death sentence to many. It's not a good place. And about that woman, she's called well, and the reason she's in jail, she killed her mother. And what happens is, Miriam, to be for sure, people who are outside those walls, we judge the people in prison so harshly. We judge them so much. And when the family refused to visit her, that's when she found the solace in studies and she decided to study. But now she got the 402 marks and she will continue with her education. After she has done with the, for example, what I understand in prison, they have courses they do, like some venture into mechanism, others into tailoring. But now I would wish the government could find a way that these guys start making income from what they do, because at the end of it, almost like, for example, women, most have families. And I can remember there was a case that was circulating like last year, whereby a woman is in prison and the grandmother is the one taking of 2 kids and she's really struggling. The woman was in pain and it was a case that was covered. These kids need to go to school. So I wish the government can have a way that when these people finish up with the education and the courses they take, they also have a way of getting income so that they can support even the families they have left behind. Mm-hmm. I think that can boost them and can really work them. And hence that will also make us start embracing them, because Miriam, you can't also want to get associated with a murderer for sure. And that's why the reason we judge them, and when they come out of the prison, we still don't embrace them. We avoid them actually, because you see, like, this person killed, this person stole, so you might see like she's still the same old her. And the reason why people, when I have a friend of a friend, she left prison and she was reformed, but the embrace she got from the outside people, she was forced to kill again. And she went back for a life imprisonment. Reason being, she was not embraced, that the people did not recognize she has changed. So I think the government should get a way of these people getting an income to support themselves, and also to support most of the people they have left behind.
Mm-hmm. But for that story you just told there, I would be scared if she was changed, but she murdered again, or was she looking for a reason to go back to prison for good because the society was shunning her out? What was the reason, if you know?
You know, in our villages, it's like a town, people are much unbothered. But in a village, you become the topic of discussion that so and so is 1, 2, 3, so and so.
Yes,
so I think the lady. Yeah, she was traumatized, and the person she actually killed the person who was spreading the rumors. She was so bitter with her because this lady had really changed, and she had even started hustling. So the bitterness they get, I'm also remembering what they went through in prison, because I could hear her explain what she went through there. It's terrible, the harassment, the lesbianism, and it is too much happening in those walls.
Okay, thank you so much. But clearly, maybe she needed some anger management, or something, that perhaps these are some of the things that should be given in prison: counseling, anger management, and other things, so that when you leave, you're prepared to know that the society may not be able to receive you as you might wish, and perhaps you have changed, but the people out there might not be having the similar mindset, but you should be prepared. So they should be talking to them before you're released, at least some counseling of some sort, so that they don't fall back and do the same things that got them to prison in the very first time. Daniel, using education as a tool for change in our correctional systems, in line with the reforms that were introduced in the prisons, how can this go a long way as far as really changing people so that when they leave, they become resourceful members of the society?
Miriam, thank you for that particular question. And of course, it's a bit unfortunate for the story that my sister Kirago has just narrated there of a former inmate who had to go back to prison because of maybe lack of acceptance and the subsequent crime that maybe came out of that. I believe education in my submission that it actually expands the horizon and the perspective by which even people view the normal life and how people perceive society. So I believe to some extent that it actually, to a greater extent, actually changes their perspective of life. And if we have maybe people who are in prison and they weren't educated maybe from the very, very beginning, you realize that it has something to do also with their esteem. They perceive themselves to be inferior. And of course, someone who has low self-esteem issues is more susceptible to maybe committing a crime than someone who has a high self-esteem and who is very, very well educated. So I believe education is the key to everything. So once these inmates are educated, and they actually realize that perhaps they can do better in education and be able to earn that maybe a certificate that the society maybe had said they will never achieve, then they believe there's much to life other than maybe indulging even in drugs, indulging in criminalities, and they find a new thing they can pursue and maybe put most of their time and their concentration on. They say that an idle mind, Miriam, is the devil's workshop. And you realize that most of these crimes, they commit them when they are in an idle state of mind, and maybe they do not have much to do in whichever place or society that they reside in. So when they find that in jail they can do the KCPE exams, the KCC exams, I believe when they come out, these will be people who are preoccupied, even those who are doing practical courses like in carpentry, like in masonry and electrical work and all that. They'll come out when they have something that they can be preoccupied with once they are outside there. And therefore, they'll not come out as the same human beings who are taken to court under certain circumstances, but they'll come out as a better person who has added knowledge and therefore has moved to a different higher strata in society, and therefore they can use on that foundation to be able to build themselves and to change their lives going forward. So it's a good thing to for them. And I believe those who have already started doing the exams, be it KCPE, KCSE, they'll be able to be given a chance or an opportunity to continue with that. And if they can complete these exams and be able to earn those relevant certificates, then also I hope that our prisons and other NGOs can be, and the NGOs rather, can be able to facilitate how they can be able to earn, get an income generating activities and be able to maybe earn a living out of it. Miriam, I believe you are very, very familiar with this shop when you're going to Busia called Jaukwala Furnitures. Just around Maseno there, they make very, very fantastic classy furnitures. The story behind it from the grapevine is that that individual was in jail for quite a long time, and it is from that particular maybe incarceration that he was able to learn maybe about carpentry. And you can see, if you go to that particular furniture shop, you can't find any set of furniture which is below 80,000 Kenyan shillings. And you can see is someone who has been selling those pieces of furniture for over years. And that tells you that this is someone who has minted a lot of money, has made a lot of fortune out of that. And that is, if that is some kind of knowledge that he was able to get through prison, then I believe the education in our prisons will always change these inmates, and it will give them a platform where they can become independent. And once someone becomes self-sufficient and independent in life, they won't have time to go committing those crimes or maybe even thinking about going back into criminal life once again. So I think education is important. It is an eye-opener for our inmates, and it will help in a big way in changing even their perspective about the society. Miriam, I submit.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And let's just look at other news on page 4 on the Star newspaper. Anxiety has gripped political bigwigs ahead of Thursday's high-stakes Supreme Court judgment on the Building Bridges initiative. It was declared unconstitutional, null and void by the Court of Appeal on August 25, 2021. The BBI initiative was a constitutional review process championed by President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga to cure the country's winner-takes-all system. However, the High Court and the Court of Appeal quashed the bid known as the BBI Reggae. It thus quashed hopes for a referendum to increase government positions, create 70 new constituencies, and increase funding to counties, among other provisions. The Supreme Court will on Thursday deliver its judgment on 7 issues framed during appeals hearing, and I'll just take us through quickly in short these issues. The first one was whether the basic structure doctrine applies to Kenya. The second issue is whether the president can initiate a popular initiative law review. The third one was whether the president can be sued in his personal capacity. And the fourth one is whether the IEBC was legally constituted when it processed the BBI bill. And I think that will leave the country at a quagmire. And for the rest of us are just waiting to hear how the court will rule on that point. And the fifth is whether the proposed 70 new constituencies are legal and the threshold of public participation, and whether the BBI process complied, that is number 6, and number 7, whether a referendum ballot paper with multiple issues should contain one or multiple questions. And so I don't know, even as we wait for the BBI ruling tomorrow, do you think it will affect in any way the August elections, Gladwell, depending on how, the court rules?
Miriam, I don't think there's a way it will affect the coming election as for me. And I think what they judged, which is a null and void, I think that was an issue, and most of people can remember it almost created chaos between the UDA team and the Azimio, because that is when the story of Mzee wa Kitendawili and the BBI started. And another thing is...
Okay, we seem to have heard. Can you hear me, Clado? We seem to have suffered a bit of a technical hitch from Gladwell's side, so I'd like to bring in Daniel Wesonga on the same question. Depending on how the court rules, assuming they rule on the BBI, the IEBC, if at all it was legally constituted when it processed the BBI bill, what will that mean? What if the rule actually, IEBC was not properly constituted, assuming? What will that mean to August elections? Will it change anything?
Miriam, I believe there's, if it does go that way, there's going to be a conundrum ahead of us. And of course, we know that is already an aspect of maybe that particular case, that IEBC was not rightfully constituted. And that puts in jeopardy over 50 or 50-something elections that were conducted by the IEBC. So maybe my hope and my expectation would be that the Supreme Court, being the highest court of the land, will actually make a ruling based on various dynamics in terms of the state of the country at the moment, and also be able to infuse it with what the law says. But nonetheless, I believe it will give a very, very balanced judgment so that the country does not sink into anarchy. You remember the former Chief Justice David Kenani Maraga wanted the president to dissolve the parliament, which would have actually thrown us into a state of anarchy. And that particular time, the IEBC was not even rightfully constituted. What would you have done, at that particular moment in time? At least for now, we have the IEBC fully constituted as it should be heading to any election. But also, that does not negate the fact that IEBC previously has been operating outside the confines of the law. So that could be a big hindrance to the current political situation in the country and even the progress of our own country, Miriam. So my hope and my expectation is that the Supreme Court, being the highest court of the land, is going to give a fair judgment based on, in regards to the BBI and also on the status of the IEBC. Mm-hmm. But my hope will have been that if we can push the elections a bit further ahead, then that will have helped, because it only means that we are preparing ourselves adequately before we can head to the election. Remember, the elections here in Kenya since 1992 have been always an object of our strife and political violence. So if we can have the issues surrounding IEBC ironed out, then that will at least guarantee us a free, fair, credible, and verifiable election. But nothing short of that, even with a positive Supreme Court ruling on BBI, it might not give us a very, very clear front to proceed, or a green light to proceed with the election. Because at the end of the day, IEBC that is not rightfully constituted, and the current status of IEBC and Wafula Chebukati will always produce a recipe for chaos, Miriam. I submit.
Okay, thank you so much. And what I heard you to be saying there earlier was that perhaps in this case, public interest should supersede, in many matters when the court is ruling, outside of just looking at what the law says, but also public interest sometimes is something they really consider. Would it be for the best interest of the country and the people of Kenya if we ruled in this way or in the other way? So public interest usually forms core in advising how many of these rulings go, but I know people are anxious to hear what the Supreme Court ruling will be like. Gladwell, I know that we had a bit of a technical hitch on your part. I don't know if you can still hear me. Gladwell?
Yes, Miriam, sorry, I think my network is a little bit low.
It's okay, but go ahead.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I've not heard what Wesonga has said, but I think I've gotten the last bit of it. And my plea will be, I wish this election to be pushed forward. And I don't know why when we as a country...
Do you think the ruling tomorrow might necessitate a change in the August elections?
Well, at a point it might, yes. Though it will also confuse us Kenyans, because I think, Miriam, we've noted there's so much happening currently, as it always happens when we head into our election. Something I think we need to change. We need always to be, when we are heading for election, I think most of the things the government does, they need to minimize them.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. And even as we speak, of course, IBC is already facing a number of problems, even as it prepares for the elections in August. So if the Supreme Court goes ahead and rules that IBC was not properly constituted when it was handling the process of the BBI, and then of course, as Daniel, you've said there earlier, even the by-elections that IBC has since conducted after those commissioners resigned, those will be null and void. So the impacts, I think that is where the public interest comes in, Daniel, right? All right. So Daniel is... Sure, you can go ahead.
Yes, Miriam, sorry?
I'm saying, like you alluded there earlier, that if the Supreme Court goes ahead and indeed rules that IEBC was not duly constituted when it was handling this process of the PBI, then that will mean even all the by-elections that the IEBC has conducted since the 4 commissioners resigned will be null and void. And so this is where the public interest comes in, because you can't tell us IEBC was not duly constituted handling the BBI process, and then here we have IEBC, who have been preparing for this election since, some years back, and that you cannot tell us that cannot affect this election. So what are we staring at? Should that go in that manner?
Exactly, Miriam. And of course, it is not only even the by-elections, but also even special elections like the LSK and many other elections that IBC was actually sourced to conduct them. They will be rendered null and void. But however, the person who is sitting at the helm of the Supreme Court as the Chief Justice is a person who has once averted this country from going into a constitutional crisis. You remember he was even being touted for coming out of leave to actually rule on the tender to print ballot papers in 2017. And these would have actually meant that if he had not come to rule on that particular court matter, then the country would have again plunged itself into a constitutional crisis. So I believe Justice Martha Koome is a judge who has always had the interest of the public at heart, and he has looked at this country not from a tribal angle or maybe a political affiliation angle, but where the republic ought to stand in those particular matters. And to me, I believe if we can have 3 or more judges who will also be able to look at this particular case in that perspective, then we shall have the BBI coming back, but we shall not necessarily maybe have IEBC rendered maybe invalid or maybe illegally constituted, and which might have implications of the forthcoming elections. But maybe, Miriam, if that happens, nonetheless, it might turn out to be a blessing in disguise, because we have been talking about IBC being overhauled and Wafula Chebukati being shown the door for the longest time, Miriam, and nothing has been done. And remember, in 2017, the Supreme Court actually ruled that IBC was at a crime scene, and Wafula Chebukati being the head of it, being that IBC was found to have committed illegality, he would have resigned. And remember, up to today, instead of resigning, Wafula Chebukati has never even complied with the directives and the court orders that were given to open the servers and also work on the illegalities and the mistakes that rendered the elections null and void. You know, this is a man who bungled a whole presidential election, but he's here grinning and smiling, ready to conduct another presidential election. But in doing so, again, he's not even paying much attention to what people are advising him that could actually pose a potential threat, and which could lead to the bungling of this particular forthcoming election. Wafula Chebukati is not paying attention to who is printing the ballot papers. He has given that particular tender to a Greece company, a company which can be compromised by the creepy political players in this country. He has not even given attention to the voters register. He has not cleaned the voters register to ensure that we have the register actually only having people who are eligible to vote in this particular election. Wafula Chebukati has not even given much emphasis on the enforcement and the oversight role that IBC should have over all the aspirants who are running for this particular election. So he has failed in a big way, but no one wants to have such a particular discussion with the IBC. He was very much negative and opposed to the Intergovernmental Committee on Electoral Elections Preparedness, and that is why today IBC is not even able to tell Kenyans whether it is aware of the polling stations which are capable of transmitting the electronic results or not. And therefore, Miriam, I think we are having a recipe of chaos. We are having a man who is again preparing to dangle these elections into the realms of being rendered a bungled election come maybe September this year. So I don't think Wafula Chebukati is ready to conduct this election. So if the Supreme Court, whichever way the Supreme Court rules on IEBC, it will be a win for this country. So I think my point of concentration perhaps will be on how they rule on BBI, so that from there we can be able to have a conversation now on IEBC. Because remember, either way, IEBC will not serve the interests of the people of Kenya. So if you're going to be having BBI, then we can say, let us have the elections postponed for a certain period of time.
Okay.
And if the elections are going to be postponed, then we can fix IEBC. And if you're going to have BBI again and also have IEBC being rendered to have operated within outside the confines of the law, then we're also going to have a discussion of how we can facilitate the movement of Wafula Chebukati from Anniversary Towers all the way to Bungoma, so that he can retire peacefully and we can get some very competent person to come and be able to champion IEBC in reforms and therefore guarantee Kenyans a free and fair general election come August or maybe next year. So to me, I hope for the best, Miriam, from these judges. I believe they'll put the country ahead of themselves and they'll put aside any political, religious, or maybe personal inclinations and be able to deliver a fair hearing to this particular case, Miriam. I submit.
All right, thank you so much. And as we conclude the show, let's just do that on a light note. I don't know if it's on a lighter note, but former KFCB boss Ezekiel Mutua's appointment as the new CEO of Music Copyright Society of Kenya has not gone down well with some artists. Mutua is expected to oversee the collection and distribution of royalties in public performances and broadcasting on behalf of the society's members. Artists have reacted to his appointment, with some saying they do not believe he will defend them. This is since they did not have the good working relationship while he was the CEO of the Kenya Films and Classification Board. Sauti Sol's Chimano termed it a process of recycling the same government officials. BN, still of Sauti Sol, termed his appointment as an elevation of mediocrity. Ezekiel Mutua's appointment is a disappointment. What did he do to film? Kenya continues to elevate mediocrity. This is just sad. And of course, comedian Eric Omondi, also, who has been in a tussle with the official before, had also something to say about that. And he rebuked Mutua's appointment, saying he will keep fighting with the former KFCB boss. What is the beef, if I can use that word, between this artist and Ezekiel Mutua? Why is it that they feel he will not champion for their rights? Or do they fear he will start censoring their music? Or what is it that is going on? Perhaps Gladwell, you could enlighten me this morning.
Yes, the reason that most of the musicians got a beef with Ezekiel Mutua is also because he will censor their music. That is the main issue. And that's why you can see, like, when he was appointed, the first person who came out to speak and was much against it is Eric Omondi. And you can, Miriam, if you can currently look into our music currently, when Ezekiel Mutua, let's say, let me put it this way, when he had stepped, when he was not the chairman. And you can see much has happened in the music industry. The kind of music that is being released to the public, it's a very poor one. Music with no morals, with no ethnic. That's why you are finding the musicians are not happy with Mutua coming back, because he censors most of the music and he bans them. I remember there was a particular time he banned most of the music and the musicians were so mad with it. Personally, I loved it when he came back, because I think now music will have its right path. Something I'm very happy about it. The musicians also need to know that what they give to us to listen, it also matters and plays a part also in the upbringing of our kids. And currently the music being played, you being an adult, you hear that for example, a kid is listening to you even get ashamed. Music that has no moral, music that has got no content. And that is what our musicians are fearing. The freedom they had, they won't have it anymore. Yes. So I'm happy with Mutua coming back.
Okay. Daniel, I don't know, when it comes to the issue of perhaps censoring our local artists. And I don't know if we are censoring our local artists and we are censoring art, because I know we don't demand for the same level of morality when it comes to the music that our children love listening to coming from the West. They're out here doing all manner of things and they seem to be enjoying that, and a lot of parents don't have problem their children listening to that. But when it comes to Kenya, we have to raise the issue of morality. I don't know if it's the double standard, or I don't know what is really going on, and why our artists are not very happy with Ezekiel Mutua taking up as the CEO in this new position that he has been given.
Miriam, I think the Kenyan entertainment industry has a big problem, and the problem is not with Dr. Ezekiel Mutua. I believe we are crucifying Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, whereas the real problem is with the Kenyan artists. I'll ask you, for example, why do you feel why do you think that maybe more than 70% of the Kenyan people would rather listen to Tanzanian or maybe South African or Nigerian, West African music rather, It is because our local music does not have content. Long gone are the days when Kenyan musicians will sing about current affairs, will sing about
But
things.
don't you think this artists they just reflecting what the Kenyan society, or there's it's not true?
There's a disconnect, Miriam, because if they will be reflecting the Kenyan society, then we would expect that more than 80% of our people will be listening to the Kenyan music.
Okay.
But the more people go actually to seek pasture in other areas, in Uganda, in Tanzania, in West Africa and South Africa, it really means that the music that is being produced by our artists do not actually suit them. And you realize that actually, and whenever our people listen to our Kenyan music, it's just maybe something that has been sung about a certain trend that was short-lived, and therefore people are still discussing about it, and that is what informed the artist to actually compose something about it. Artists are not, the Kenyan artists are not trend setters. Rather, they leave the Kenyan people to set a trend, and then you will hear an artist has sung about the same trend that the Kenyan people are talking about it. So it is in some sense, it's like the artists are trying to align the Kenyan population, or maybe music consumers, or maybe entertainment products consumers. Artists are trying to align to the product consumers, rather than actually being the pace setters, so that people can align to them. So you realize that even here in Kenya, if you were to ask any random, maybe interview any random Kenyan and ask them which Kenyan music group they will listen to, they will tell you South Soul. And if you go to South Africa and ask them which music group do they know from Kenya, they'll also tell you South Soul. Even in Nigeria, even in Tanzania. Why is it the case? Because maybe South Soul has some content in their music. They sing about things that people can relate with, things that can educate people about one or two things, music that can be listened, Miriam, when you are in the car with your children, when you are having breakfast with your children, or lunch, or even with friends or your parents, without feeling that maybe they're infringing on your morality standards and all that. But you go to these other artists here in Kenya, they are singing about liquor, they're singing about obscenities, and therefore there is no content. It is not the music that you can listen even with your children. And therefore, if you cannot listen music with your children, or maybe with your family, then you really want to listen that music in your earphones, or maybe when the volume is at the lowest. So it means that this music will not be propagated and be shared with the society and be able to spread like a bushfire. So that is how we have been accustomed to in this current dispensation in our entertainment industry. So my challenge is to the Kenyan artists and the entertainers: let them come up with content that is actually aligning with their audience. Let them create content that actually is educative, content that is actually makes sense, which talks about issues in the society, the trends and everything. And people will listen to them. You realize that even in Tanzania, musicians like Diamond Platinums, even in South Africa, even in Nigeria, they don't actually, maybe, I wouldn't say they sing more of our content than our Kenyan artists, but they know how to sing about it. Okay. If they have to sing about things that are maybe of an adult content, they know how to censor that, and they know which maybe words to choose, so that it doesn't come out quite blatantly. The same way the olden days it used to be done. They used to sing about romance, they used to sing about love, they used to sing about anything that they want to pass through the society. But there's a way they could censor that and be able to bring the message out without actually jeopardizing our younger population and making maybe it sound like it's an obscene kind of music. But in Kenya, I believe our artists are a bit blatant. They are very plain. They don't regard that we have young people or maybe children who it might have a negative maybe implication against when they sing about these obscenities and glorify maybe the rotting society and all that. So I think it is all upon, it depends with the musicians that they do a content that is well protected, a content that will not maybe misguide the morality of our young children or even the population itself, so that they get maybe an audience with our people. You realize that in Uganda, the richest people in the country after politicians are actually the musicians. In Tanzania, the richest people after the political class are actually the musicians. In a country like South Africa, actually the DJs and the musicians are the highest paid people after the politicians and the bureaucrats. The same way with Nigeria, it is talent which is paying people more than anything else outside maybe being in government. You understand that in Africa, government is the source of wealth for so many people because of corruption. But after that, we have the entertainment industry. But here in Kenya, you hear about musicians and entertainers committing suicide because of depression. Why are they depressed? Because they are living a lie. They want to portray a picture that they are equally doing well as their counterparts in Uganda, in Tanzania, and South Africa and West Africa, whereas they are earning peanuts. Some of them are sleeping hungry. Some of them are going for days without even having a show to perform and earning any money. But because they have to keep up the pace with their contemporaries in various parts of Africa and the globe, they have to live a lie. And in living a lie, they end up into debts. And ultimately, because they cannot be able to pay all these money they owe to various parties, they end up committing suicide and getting into depression. And that is because their work is not selling across this country. So I think in as much as we will say that even we force a hashtag of play Kenyan music, the Kenyan entertainment industry also has to strive to make sure that they up their game and they give Kenyans content, they give Kenyans music that they can listen to. You know, I will always tell people, why would Kenyans listen to South Soul since 2014, you know, without even having a break? Anytime South Soul brings out a new song, everyone is going for it, you know. People can listen to songs which were produced in 2015 by South Soul, to songs which were produced in 2017, without even feeling that they are getting old. But ask me about maybe Gengeton song, which was released maybe last year. No one really wants to give a hoot about it because there was no content. It was only euphoric, you know, because there was a certain which was happening at that time, and the musicians sat down and they were able to patch up some lines about the happening of the day, and people actually went for it because of euphoria. And because the euphoria is long gone and that trend is long gone, the music is also forgotten for that particular matter. So I think they should learn from the old musicians, the likes of Daudi Kabaka, the likes of Maroon Commandos, the likes of, you know, those musicians who wrote the kind of music that were immortal, the music that will live so many years and decades beyond their own lives. So I think that is the way to go. And if you realize that is the same kind of style that South Soul has been using, that is the same kind of style. Even the kinds of Diamond Platinums, you know, Mbosso and many other Tanzanian musicians use, you know, they sing about the society, they sing about love in such a way that it is artistic, you know. They sing about, you know, if you could sit down, you could see actually it is very, very much artistic. It's something close to a poem. Okay. It's something close, and people will relate to that, other than just, you know, throwing random words and obscenities here and there, and you expect your music to live for a lifetime. All it can't be real.
Okay, I see you're not feeling kapuka. I think that's what they call it. Right. I think when it comes to the contemporary music, and you know, Kenyan music industry is multifaceted. When you listen to rumba, it has its own people, and it's good music. And then we have the Mugithi, the Ohanglas, and all that. Those seems to be very solid. But when it comes to the contemporary music that our young people produce and sing about, I think that's where we seem to have an identity crisis. They don't know whether to borrow from the Western world or whether to borrow from I don't know which other. So there's a bit of confusion there. So sometimes, and I agree with you, what you said and also what Gladwell said. So just hashtag you know, play Kenyan music will not do it. So you're demanding if they have, it has to be played, then it must have some meaning. So of course, as you were talking, of course, the tweet by Alfred Ezekiel Mutua there, and he's saying that he will work with the artists to make sure that their music, is profitable and meaningful. Sasa hapa kwa meaningful, that is where he'll have problem with artists, because I don't know, maybe that is when censorship will come in, but it's a bit too early for us to judge him. So maybe we just need to extend some grace and some patience, and so we see if at all this promise that he has made, that his intention is to make sure that music become profitable even to the artists themselves. If this is at all is a dream, that he will help our Kenyan artists, to realize hapo kwa meaningful, especially when it comes to Kapuka and these other ones. Hapo kutakuwa na shida kidogo. Thank you so much, Daniel Wasong and Cadwell Kirago. This has been Good Morning Africa. We shall be back here at 11 a.m. Remember, yesterday, Democratic Republic of Congo joined the East African community, and that is the big conversation we shall be having at 11 a.m. What does that mean to this block of EAC? I'll see you then. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Thank you so much for watching. Good morning.